Right now, though, I'm joined by the one and only author. The book is called Pause. Her name is Dr. Patricia Murugami. She's the CEO of Breakthrough Leadership Transformation and founder of Rise School. Karibu, Daktari.
Thank you so very much, Olivia. Excited to be here.
I found out about you a few months ago from an ally called Andrew Kilonzo.
Yes.
He's a man I respect so much. I have so much time for Andrew. He's counseled me and given me wisdom for many, many years. And when he said, Olivia, there's a woman I need to introduce you to, I was like, who? Which one? You know, the only thing is that it's been backlog and backlog and backlog, but welcome to Double O Direct.
Thank you very, very much. And you're absolutely right that we can't go any farther unless we're standing on the shoulders of giants. And when I think about Andrew, we've done quite a bit of work with his team, and he has been a leadership positioner for women across East African breweries. So thank you, Andrew. A shout out right there.
Shout out to EABL.
Absolutely.
So tell me, who is Patricia Murugami?
Well, first and foremost, stripped of all the titles, I'm a daughter of God. And I think it's an important thing because many times we introduce ourselves according to accolades and titles and achievements. And in my first book, Rise, I actually have a chapter of who are you stripped of your titles. So beyond being a daughter of God, I'm a wife, a mom, a daughter, a sister, a friend to many, mentor of many. I coach many leaders across the world. Author, founder of Rise School, the very first digital leadership school, really one of our intellectual COVID babies, as well as, chair of the board of Clean Start, which I'll be talking a little bit more about that because from a bias perspective, there's so many insights we've gained from Breakthrough, my role in Breakthrough, and also as I serve on this board.
So tell me, in the journey towards your PhD, when did that, because honestly, leadership and the kind of academics and qualifications that you have, it's not commonplace, right? Maybe it is elsewhere in Sweden, I don't know, right? But here, when you think about what people go to study, even at PhD level, it's not very common. And what was your journey to wanting to know so much about a subject matter and so deeply?
That's such a great and deep question. And I started my career as an auditor. Okay.
Wait, an auditor, like finance?
Yeah, finance, auditor.
Oh, the West, that's so boring.
Well, I think there's some who really enjoy what they do and they're not that boring.
I don't doubt it.
Yes,
I don't doubt it. I'm generalizing. I have
that's
bias.
That's a stereotype right there.
I apologize.
That's a bias right there.
I apologize. No, but the fact is, how did you get from auditing to this?
That's exactly my point.
Yeah.
So I started my career. I actually did marketing at University of Nairobi, a BCom, but I also did CPAs on the side. So when we had a long holiday, my dad and my mom are always like, you shouldn't just be idle. And you know how it is with campus, you have lots of free time.
Wait. No. I'm going to, as the title of your book says, I'm going to pause you right there.
Please do.
You're studying at university level marketing. Mm-hmm. Then in the holidays, you're getting a CPA.
Not holidays, in the evening. From Lwakabete all the way to Madaraka, Strathmore, and back 3 or 4 evenings a week.
You've left a radio presenter speechless. Huh?
That's
Vladimir Putin says, something that has never been seen in history. No, but seriously, the point is,
So when the first holiday, those days, the holidays were longer. There were lots of strikes and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And I remember my first holiday was a longer 6 months kind of holiday. And I got an internship with Coopers & Lybrand, now PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Wow.
That was fascinating. So I learned quite a bit. So when the campus recruiters were coming around as we were finishing off our degree, then Coopers came, KPMG came, and again, I've been taught at home, a bird in hand is worth 2 in the bush. I had thought, let me try and see if I can get into the marketing space. No roles were coming at the time. And I wanted to leave campus with a job, which is what happened. So we finished off campus on Thursday. On Monday, I was at KPMG.
Wow. Who's the current CEO of KPMG? I think I met the guy. Really tall guy. I can't remember his name, though.
Yes.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
The current East African CEO?
Yes. My former CEO,
Yes.
Stephen Gitagama, introduced me
Yes,
to him, but
yes.
I can't remember.
And we did a lot of those audits of Nation Media
Yeah,
Group,
yeah,
Standard Group.
yeah.
I mean, a lot of the banks.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it was such a good start.
Yes.
Irrespective of the fact that it was a bit painful because
Yes.
I kept feeling I want to do more with people. I loved the numbers. You could crunch the numbers. That was great. And actually, I learned a lot of work ethic, of working long hours. In fact, just the other day, my husband was telling me, do you remember when we started dating? I used to wait outside. He would wait out there outside Lonro House.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm coming. And the date is for 7. And a few minutes to 7, my manager says, we need to finish going through this audit report.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, perhaps in 30 minutes max. And we're finishing off at 10.
No. Okay. If a guy will wait for you,
Exactly.
let me tell you one thing. Yeah? Huh? Dude, those are like 20 cows right there. If a guy will wait for you outside Lonro House at 7 p.m. for your date and you're checking in at 10 p.m.
That's how he got the brownie points. I was like, this guy is serious.
That's a husband.
This guy is serious.
That's not a boyfriend.
Exactly.
That's a husband.
And you know that was like date 1 or date 2.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was like, sometimes, and this is really just veering off a little bit, but
let's veer.
Sometimes you find that you're stressed out about a situation, but I find that it's like a tea bag. And I don't know who said that, but a tea bag is really tested when it's in hot water. That's when you know the real taste of that local Kenyan brew, which has a reddish brownish
Shout out to everyone at Sassini. Shout out to all of you. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you see, sometimes I remember I was so stressed because I'm thinking, gosh, I'm leaving the office at 10. It's been waiting. But with hindsight, I remember because I had mentors all along and they're like, that guy is waiting. That's a great sign.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're in a situation where you're only looking at it inwardly, but without realizing that it's giving you an opportunity to test yourself, test your character muscle, see what kind of friendships you have, and what kind of longevity you could have with those friends after the adversity or the stressful situation you're going through.
Wonderful.
So KPMG, and then I went on into Deloitte Consulting, and then I got into Bamburi, and I was in a finance role through and through.
Wow.
And I kept thinking, I know I'm made for more, but I just can't see how to do it. So I spent a lot of time doing a lot of leadership assessments, just trying to figure out who am I, what kind of role, how do I reinvent myself from a finance role to something I wasn't even sure of. But over the years, I realized that I loved spending time with people.
Yes.
In fact, on the side, I had a wedding planning business.
No, Patricia, I cannot with you. Sean, get this lady out of here. Get her out. Okay, so wait, we've gone through marketing.
Yes.
You have a CPA.
Yes.
You're doing wedding planning.
Yes.
You're auditing at Deloitte, Bamburi, KPMG.
Yes. And in Bamburi, and now after Deloitte, I thought, I really want to go into industry because we've been doing a lot of advisory work. And so they came headhunting, and I remember we went in as change champions with 2 other gentlemen. And again, it was a male-dominated team, and our role was to try and connect the dots to create a culture of change.
Yes.
That was in Bamburi. And to also connect, for me, it was HR, legal, IT to strategy.
Yes.
But when I was in Deloitte, I don't know that you remember the committee meetings we used to have for weddings.
Oh,
I mean,
of course.
So for me, I would sit in a committee meeting and I'm like, we are really wasting time here.
Yes.
Going through a budget, including the gown, the rings, all sorts of things. And I kept thinking, time is sacred. Why are we wasting it?
Exactly.
Perhaps there's an opportunity for me to present a solution so that couples don't struggle with all these committee meetings. And my focus was, in fact, I have a friend, again, shout out to her, she knows herself, and they were living together and they already had 1 baby. And I told her, you guys love each other. Why aren't you getting married? And I know you're Christian and you should actually, you want to. She's like, man, planning a wedding is too much. I said, let me plan it. And there was my first client even before I was ready.
Wow.
So there's a flip there.
Yes.
We are biased sometimes against ourselves because you keep saying, I've got to be ready. I've got to be 100% ready.
Yes.
No, life does not wait for you to be ready.
Yes.
So right there, I had my first wedding planning client. We planned the wedding. And after that, we must have planned 50, 60, 80, almost 100 weddings over a period of just under 10 years.
If I'd known you, I wouldn't have eloped. I was like, I can't.
We can do We've done anniversaries also, just for you to know.
Okay. It's
but
coming up soon.
in there, I see you blushing. In there was the lesson for me because then I started extending the line. So we were doing wedding planning not for the sake of the fanciness of the wedding, but our punchline was, let us plan your wedding.
Yes.
Because the wedding is one day, the marriage is a lifetime. So as you allow us to plan the wedding, we actually did a mind map. I remember at the time my husband helped me do a mind map so that conversations you ought to have before you get married.
He was already your husband, though?
Yes.
Okay.
And what was very interesting is a lot of couples were going through marital counseling as a ticker box. In fact, very reluctantly.
So that the priest can ask you, have you had sex before marriage?
Well, amongst many other questions. And what was interesting is because they were entrusting me with their biggest budget, the couple would very willingly listen to me.
Yeah.
So we would talk about the mind map, conversations to have, career, money, children, old age. You know, those no-go zones that a lot of couples never
Religion,
talk
politics.
about. Exactly.
Yeah.
At what point do we allow a family to live with us? If I come from a family where I've always lived with relatives and you're an only child, what happens there? How do we then create a new culture? Family traditions. Anyway,
Yes.
so from there came bridal showers.
Yes.
So I would speak at bridal showers and they'd be like, you know what, why don't you put a program together?
Yes.
And then I just thought, you know what, too many people have too much pain when they're going into marriage. So perhaps there's something I could do about that pain.
What do you mean pain?
So I would meet couples who are so into each other when they were getting married. And then when I meet them a year later, I'm like, how is it going? Don't even go there. And I'm like, what happened?
A year after the marriage now?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And then they would say, you know, there's so many things I didn't realize. Culture. Culture is a big one. And, you know, I'm so happy that a lot more intermarriages are happening in terms of different cultures. At the time, it was very rare. I mean, this is 2003.
Wow.
2004.
Wow.
And so
Wait.
Wait.
So you married this man who waited for you outside Lonra House when?
2004. You're almost 20 years married now.
I need to know your facial cream and regimen. But we'll talk that off mic. Thank you. Yeah.
So I decided to actually design a program
Yes.
called Brides for Life, Wives for Life.
Yes.
I was like, you know what? All of us have just gotten married around the same season.
Yes.
We all are struggling in one way or the other. If I'm struggling, there must be many others struggling.
Yes.
Let me start this program.
Okay.
We used to run it at the Serena. So
Yes.
that was how I entered learning development of some kind.
Yes.
You see?
Yes. And at the moment you have an undergraduate in marketing and
Yes.
you have a CPA.
And I'm working on a master's.
Your master's you're working on was on what?
Strategy and HR.
Okay.
Yeah, at University of Nairobi. So again, an
HR
evening
even?
course. Yeah, people. Because I was
Okay.
like, I need to know a little bit more about people. What makes them tick?
Okay.
Why do people behave the way they are?
Okay.
Full circle.
Yes.
When I was in Bamburi, I kept thinking, what more can I do?
Yes.
And then there was a business continuity planning process.
Yes.
And 2007, 2008,
Yes.
you remember what happened? And so we really had to think about crisis management. And I was tasked to lead that effort.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, I started training people.
Wow.
And I was like, I love this. And they would say, you really break down complicated concepts
Yes.
into simplified ways of understanding and even practical ways of application. And I was
Yes.
like, okay, so maybe I'm onto something here. And I would pray and I would speak to mentors. And
Yes.
guess what?
What?
Strathmore Business School came along and they said, you know what? I would like to hire you to be our Director of Executive Education.
As you're working on your master's.
Yeah. And working in Bamburi and having a wedding planning business and this program called Brides for Life.
And the question is,
And
had
I'm
you-
married, by the
Had
way,
you
yeah?
had kids?
No.
Okay, not yet.
Not
Okay.
yet. So we were trying. I'm all for, you know what, when you get
Because
married.
you're so busy. I'm just wondering, like, when was this guy?
No. Actually, the children came and they came fairly fast. And I remember that's
Yeah.
when I made the decision because then in Bamburi, the hours were so long. So the risk of my daughter calling me auntie was very high.
Yeah,
You know, if you
yeah.
leave home at 5:36
Yeah.
and you come home after midnight.
What?
Yeah, because finance is finance. And there are no two ways about it. Paris needs the numbers, it needs the numbers. I got to do this work. And I remember, and I
Yeah.
actually talk about it in my TED talk,
Yeah.
that one day I was leaving at 8.
Yes.
And 8 is late.
Yes.
And I'm at the lift and my
Yes.
boss says, hey, how comes you're going home at half day? I'm like, half day? What do you mean half day?
So your boss was still there.
Of course, my boss is still there and I'm leaving because I'm like, I've done my part. I got to go now.
And what time did you get in that day?
I mean, typically I was always at work before 7. Typically. I'm an early riser. I prefer to front load my day.
Kwani hii inakuanga pesa ngani watu wanalipwa? Like, what is happening?
Even beyond the money.
What is like,
We'll talk about money shortly.
okay. I know I'm interrupting so many things.
No,
but
no, it's okay.
Let's go. Let's continue. Uh-huh.
So I tell him, you know, the difference between me and you is that I am the wife. So I have a night shift.
Yeah.
I'm going home to cook, to clean, to do all sorts of things. You guys, when you get home, because it was a fully all male dominated except me.
finance space.
Yes.
Yes.
And that brings me to an issue of bias we'll talk about later. And he's like, oh, actually, she's right. He's like, okay, see you tomorrow. But I remember it took a lot of courage for me to say that. And I was like, we've got to make workspaces more human, more humane, so that women don't have to choose work over family. The two are possible. Anyway, so Strathmore comes along, and at the time, my negotiation, I always believe you get what you negotiate and have the courage to ask for, not what you think you're worth. And so at the time, for me, I wanted time.
Okay.
And I was like, I know this money seems okay, but let me tell you, you can earn all the money you want to earn. But you're so stressed out, you're so tense, and you have no time
to
even
enjoy
use
that money.
that
Do
money.
you know, I tell people all the time, right?
Yes.
No matter how much you're making,
Absolutely.
you're waiting to be in your late 60s to enjoy your... People tell me, Olivia, how do you work only one day a week? I only work on Saturdays.
Look at that.
Because I'm like, you know what? I've been working since 1996. I had my first TV show.
Wow.
I've worked.
Well done.
I said, now in my 40s, my pseudo prime, I'm going to chill. I don't want to join your board. Not this year.
Yes.
I don't want to participate. The only thing I'm doing is my child's activities. You know what I mean? So you are absolutely right, Dr. when you say people also need to have that balance.
Let me tell you, say no. Say no is very hard for a lot of people. Say no even to question, what does enough look like? I'm reminded, very brief anecdote there. We had no time to even shop for clothes, shoes, whatever. So there's a lady who used to bring us shoes when I was in Upper Hill.
Yes.
And initially when she started, she would come with suitcases, size 5 and 6, size 7 and 8. Then lunchtime, we look at the shoes, you buy the shoes. By the time I was leaving, 2-3 years later, she had a tinted van.
Hey?
Who has financed that van?
You guys.
Of course. Then she's like, you don't need to worry about, fitting the shoes in the bathroom. Just come down, enter the tinted car. No one will even see you. Try your shoes comfortably. I'll even give you a payment plan. And at the time, and those are what?
Mid-noughties.
No,
Or late
I'm just thinking,
2000s.
this was 2005, 2008,
mid-noughties.
about that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Those shoes were 6,000 bob.
Shoes were super expensive.
Exactly.
Super
Even now,
expensive.
I'm not
Yeah,
likely
yeah.
to be buying a shoe of
People go-
6,000.
Not even people
So
go
do
and
you
tell me shoes
see?
at 30K.
Let's not go there into double digits. But my question is,
Yeah.
you think you're earning the money, but it's actually sipping out, leaking,
yeah.
because your choices are all based on your circumstances, that you have no time or energy to even shop. Buying milk in a select shop. Of course, you'll just corrode all that value. Anyway, I go to Strathmore and I remember negotiating with them about time.
Yes.
And I said I want a 9 to 3. And I got it.
What?
But they said, we can't pay you that amount. I said, it's okay. But you will see my worth and the value I'll bring,
Yes.
and hopefully we can have a money conversation in another 6 months.
Yes.
But I was so excited
Yeah.
to go to work at 9 and
Yes.
leave at 3.
Yes.
And I finished my master's.
Yes.
And in no time, a few years later, I started my doctorate. And 10 years into Strathmore, I felt it was time to now leave and go into breakthrough my own firm. So the lesson here is, when you feel a certain call and prompt in your heart,
Yes.
it means that if you believe in God, God has given you a divine assignment. Don't waste your time playing games with, should I not? Because when you actually go into your purpose zone and solve the problem you're put on earth to solve, the money will follow.
Spice.
Daktari,
Yes.
what does International Women's Day mean to you?
IWD, which extends into the entire month, is very special for me on very many levels. And for me, it means really taking stock of how far we've come, seeing what kind of multi-generational positive impact we can have, and practicing intentional gratitude to the positive and painful shoulders upon which we stand. And lastly, really looking around and looking at the women who have paved the way for us to even be having this conversation here today, and not taking that for granted.
That is incredible. There are 4 women that come to mind for me, especially from a career work perspective. Yeah. Rhoda Orengo, she was my editor.
Yes.
Yeah. I used to write for a newspaper. I'm going to say it. It's not supposed to be kosher, but I must say it. Yeah. I used to write for The Nation. So Rhoda really coached me there.
Right.
Charlene Samat, also another media lady. Charlene, if Margaret Thatcher was a petite woman, Kenyan of Asian origin. Yeah, that would be Charlene Samat. Now you know Charlene Samat. The other one is Rashmi Chuk. Rashmi was also my boss at Nation, and the most immediate female boss I had. A lady actually told me, Olivia, she looked at her watch. She said, Olivia, it's 4:30. Why are you still in the office? Right? 4:30 p.m., not a.m.
Yes, I understand.
And because I used to get in really early to be with the breakfast guys at like 5 a.m. or something like that. I said, go home. Yeah, her name is Monica Ndungu. Monica, we've not spoken for a long time. Monica is head of broadcast at our competitor. Monica, I appreciate that because it showed that she cares for me. So for you, who are some of the women in your life, right? Professionally or personally, and outside of family, because I know family is sacred. Name a couple.
Goodness. Wow. I mean, such a long list. I'm just thinking who to select and who not to, you know?
You can always end with et al.
Et al.
You know, with et al.
Very immediately, when I chose to leave full-time employment and a really high acceleration ladder and going to breakthrough, I want to honor the women who gave us a chance to show them that we could do something as breakthrough. And so I can think about Jane Karuku at East African Breweries.
Yes.
Sanda Ojiambo at Safaricom and now the UN Global. And then I can think about Rachel Bayliss and Anita in Uganda, Standard Bank. I can think about Shola of Standard Bank Group and Pindi and Palesa and Joanne.
Yes.
I mean, an entire group there that was so keen and believed in us and actually said, we know you can do it. We can see. So come and do it for us, And, as I honor these women and I honor Jennifer Karina, who's a coach par excellence and chair of the Kenya Re Board, and I honor Dr. Catherine Gahu, who taught me marketing and I never needed to read.
What?
And I would pass those exams like that because her ability to explain the concepts in such a practical way gave me my love for marketing.
Yes.
And I think marketing is really, marketing and sales are actually a life skill for anybody. And so Dr. Catherine Gahu has really made a difference for me. When I think about mentors and reverse mentors are younger people than you who, you think you should be mentoring them, but they mentor you.
Yes.
And then mentors in their own right, Professor Anwe Gai, and she's a genetics professor, but she gave me such wisdom from the family perspective, professional perspective.
Yes.
Reverse mentors, some of the cohorts are mentoring, they know themselves.
Yes.
And the kind of insights they share with me, actually starting off my podcast came from those reverse mentors and our YouTube channel saying, Patricia, you need to go out there because not everyone will have a chance to sit in your classroom.
Yes.
I'm thinking
Pause. I need to know how to get your podcast.
Yes.
How do we get on your podcast?
It's called Your Next Best Self podcast with Dr. Patricia Murugami. It's on all platforms.
Okay.
All platforms. Okay. And then Breakthrough with Dr. Patricia Murugami YouTube channel.
Yes.
I mean, you can see the list is long.
It is.
I want to honor very specifically at this moment the risers who've dared to join our Rise School, our very first cohort.
Yes.
60 plus men and women who have chosen to say, we trust you can take us to the promised land, so to speak, from a leadership perspective.
I'm going to ask you about the Rise School since you've brought it up. Yes. Tell me about the certification accreditation, because, people want to make sure that when they go into something, yes, the knowledge in and of itself is fantastic, but then where is the credibility? Absolutely. Where can I then use it once I've finished my course?
It's such a good question you're asking because, many times I was fascinated the other day, someone sent me her profile and right there she had indicated she's not even finished the course. she's executive, because this is executive education.
Yes.
So it actually doesn't go like the CPAs and have an exam. Actually, the exam is the exam of life that you're implementing this. So the fact that I did my doctorate, I'm coaching certified, that already brings the credibility. And then the 20 or so years of leadership experience.
Yes.
So it's the executive education certification that comes with this.
Yes.
And I was fascinated to see people updating their LinkedIn profiles to say Rise Masterclass in self-leadership.
Wow.
Because you know what? If you can't lead yourself, why should anyone trust you to lead them?
I agree. I completely and utterly agree. So the year for this year's International Women's Day is Break the Bias. I want you and I to talk through some of the biases, some of the challenges, some of the hurdles, some of the pitfalls, that you feel as women we experience or even put upon ourselves.
That's true. And there are a host of them. When I think about bias, it's a loaded word. And, you can be biased without knowing, which is unconscious bias. And then there's some conscious biases we see and we just tolerate. For whatever reason, we're not able to put up our hand and say, I think this should stop. I'm just reflecting back around my doctorate.
Yes.
When I chose the school that I wanted to do, International School of Management in Paris.
Yes.
It's because I didn't want to leave my family and go away for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 6 years.
Okay.
So I wanted a sandwich program.
Okay.
And that was when, 2010, 2011?
Yes.
So there were not even as many as they are now.
They weren't.
And most of the Ivy League schools required you to actually fly in there for years.
Exactly.
So, but I wanted to live a full life. Remember?
Yes.
My motivation for living corporate at the time was time. But also to use that time meaningfully. So I wanted to work. I wanted to raise a family, keep happily married.
Yes.
And at the same time study.
Yes.
So I find the program and I think to myself that I'm going to ask them some tough questions. So as they're interviewing me, I'm going to interview them. And that's the first bias, that sometimes we don't believe we are worthy. I would call it the unworthiness bias.
Yes.
That I am not worthy of something positive happening to me. And I found so many women and men who are locked in the unworthiness bias. For whatever reason, things have happened to them in the past and they've carried the narrative that I am not worthy.
I do not deserve.
I do not deserve anything positive. I do not deserve success. I do not deserve achievement. I do not even deserve peace and joy, which I think is tragic.
I see they bear a lot of pain and they wear their misery.
Yes. And misery loves company. So it becomes contagious. So you hang out with people who are also just feeling as miserable as you. But there's an antidote to that. But let me just continue this idea of the ISM.
Yes.
So when I talked to them, I told them, I'm the childbearing age. And if we
I
continue...
love that.
Yes.
I'm in the childbearing. I should have told those guys at university. But okay, continue.
And so I'd like to know, since you say that you actually promote women to come back to school,
Yes.
what do you have practically in place
Yes.
to ensure that in the event that I have to take a year or two off for maternity,
Yes.
and also, just to manage that whole season of being in a state of good hope,
Yes.
also called pregnancy,
Yes.
then I'd like to know whether I'll be penalized. And they said no. And for me, that was it.
Okay.
And actually, as it so happened,
Yes.
I actually took the 2 years.
So how long did it take you to complete your PhD?
6 years, including the 2 years. So it means I took 4 years.
Okay, we don't even like you. We didn't like you from the beginning. Now we really, really don't like you because that is amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I know it's not an easy journey.
It was not easy at
Yeah.
all. But for me, unworthiness bias means you go back to asking yourself, when did I start feeling unworthy? And find the triggers that got you there and start to do the deep self-work of forgiveness. And I'm finding now forgiveness for the longest time has always been a churchy conversation.
Yes.
Forgiveness is a human conversation.
Yes.
It's a leadership conversation.
Yes.
How many people are still bearing the brunt of their first bad boss? So many haven't forgiven, haven't gotten over that. And yet 20 years later, you're still remembering how that boss treated you without picking the lessons? There's something there about being held captive.
I need to remember. I sort of remember my first boss. Do you know Washira Waruru?
Yes.
So his brother Kanja
Yes.
had a station. Do you remember STV? You're of that age.
I am.
My first show, 96,
Yes.
on STV. He was a fantastic boss. We talked to this very day. He's a
Very
fantastic
good.
guy.
And so you have positive shoulders.
Yeah.
But there are people who are still hanging on to painful shoulders, which means those people actually helped you grow, even if it was painful.
Yeah.
But you can't see that you could grow and that you grew because you're still caught up in the pain warp.
Spice.
We're talking about breaking the bias, the theme for this IWD, and you're telling me about invisible bias or unconscious bias.
We'll talk about unconscious later.
Yes.
Because many people tend to know those ones. And the ones I'm talking about are kind of fresh out of my research and insight.
Yes.
So we talked about unworthiness bias, where you don't believe you're worthy. And so you can't ask for that raise. You can't ask for that. You can't negotiate because you already feel you're not worthy.
Yes.
The second one I want to talk about is invisible bias. Invisible bias is where you don't notice people who help you and they're in your circle, what I call your circle of support. And because you don't notice them, then you don't honor them, you don't treat them well. Yet there is no way you could do everything you do without them. So today I want to order a number of people.
Can I just start with the first one?
Start because you experienced her.
I'm going to poach her.
No chance.
Let me tell you one thing.
No chance.
Yeah, I don't know what she's in need of. A child, a husband, money, something, a secret holiday. I don't know.
Olivia, this is not the agenda of this call.
Betty is amazing.
Thank you.
You know, I had to be like, well, maybe this is Dr. Patricia Murugami, like in secret. You know how you have like secret boss or secret millionaire or secret, you know, you're Ronaldo dressed as a homeless person playing football in a field somewhere. I'm like, is this Betty? Firstly, just the way she communicates.
Yes.
And her meticulousness.
Yes.
And her care for you. I had to be like, is this really not Patricia Murugami in disguise? Pretending to be like her own, you know, employee or something. You know? Because I didn't even answer to her. I asked her, Rosafi, I'm going to confess. I asked, does the attorney pay you enough? Like, I was like, she's amazing. She is living, what is in your book.
Yes.
And communicating it to people she interacts with. And this is the number on your post. You know those gatekeepers?
It's true.
Are usually the worst.
Usually, yes. You can never get through to anybody.
Yeah.
Because they gatekeep and only gatekeep.
Yeah.
And they don't leave the DNA of the person, of the business, of the culture.
You get to C-suite, they're great. But the guys in between. But I'm telling you, Betty, I'm telling you now. You are appreciated.
Yes, you are.
You are amazing.
You're absolutely right. And it's so wonderful to hear it from you, who has engaged with her how many times? 2-3 times?
2 times on the phone. Never met her. I don't even know what she looks like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, I really want to honor Betty Ndunge.
Yes.
You know, she's my executive assistant. She's our commercial lead.
Yes.
And for me, it is her learning agility, her ability to imbue, to ask me courageous questions. What did you mean there? How would you like this to turn out? What is it that, you know, if you're getting stressed about this and I'm not doing my job, you know, those statements, you only imagine hearing them.
Yes.
And so I want to honor Betty because even today she's like, so are you almost there? I'm like, Betty, it's your Saturday. I'm good. You just listen and watch.
Yes.
So Betty Ndunge, I honor you. You're part of my circle of support. And I know that a lot of the work that we're doing this year, there is no way I would have been able to do it without your wisdom, your insight, and your follow through.
Yes.
The second person I want to honor is my Sarah Othman. And she joined us actually very recently, and she's responsible for the digital assets, Rice School. You can imagine, first time running a Rice School, joins just after we've launched and has a very short window to actually fill that class and speak to them such that none of them ever need to necessarily speak to me because they feel totally covered and taken care of. I have a dream team. Let me just tell you.
Yes.
I have a dream team.
Yes.
Jane, our nanny at home, who will ask me, today I can see you're going to work. Do you need the banners?
Wow.
Have you packed the books in the car?
Yes.
What about your face shield? Do you need it? Are you going to be home in time for lunch? Can I pack your lunch?
Wow.
I mean, I was so honored just looking at her, giving a success card to my daughter who starts her exams on Monday. And she signed that card with her daughter.
Wow.
During the break, which means she's been intentional about it.
Yes.
And every time when I tell her, let me give you a book, she says, no. If you can sell it, you sell it first. Then you'll give me the ones that maybe might be spoiled I mean,
Wow.
so our circle of support,
Yes.
the chances of us having invisible bias to the people who, in a sense, are there to just ensure you go further,
Yes.
is very much a risk for a lot of leaders.
I love it. I love it. We've talked about unworthiness bias. We've talked about invisible bias. What's next?
I want us to talk about marginalization bias, where we stigmatize people. And this one is around the work that we do. I serve as a chair of Clean Start Board.
Tell me about Clean Start.
And Clean Start is an incredible organization that was started by Teresa Njoroge.
Yes.
And our goal is to help those who are currently incarcerated in prison and those who are, and those who are formerly incarcerated, formerly
Yes.
imprisoned women
Yes.
and girls and children. And now we seem to be extending into the male space. And I'll talk about that at the tail end.
Yes.
Because we can't change this world if we say it's only women.
Yeah, of course.
We've got to look at also the men.
Andrew Kilonzo, we sent you a shout out. We
Absolutely.
appreciate you. You are an ally.
Absolutely. And International Women's Day is a time to also honor the men who have helped us get this far. So Teresa experienced firsthand being jailed, false accusation, chose not to bribe, served a sentence with her 3-month-old daughter.
No.
Oh, yes. And did you know that we do so many things that marginalize us from our minds? So when I was asked to serve on that board,
Yes.
you can't imagine how many corporates come and tell me, Patricia, why are you serving on the Clean Start board and you could serve on any listed company board?
No.
Yes.
No.
And it's true, I can serve on any listed company board, but I choose not to in this season.
Yes.
Because they need my voice, my networks, my knowledge, and anything else that I can provide
Yes.
to ensure that those women, after they've served a sentence, do not constantly serve sentence after sentence after sentence in life because they have served it. And by the way, what makes us think, which is why we have a superiority bias,
Yes.
that you and I cannot end up in there?
Oh, we can.
How many times have you just brushed the law like this? Many times. And many times, perhaps your guardian angel was on alert and you just didn't get to be called into that police station,
Yes.
into that court.
Yes.
And because money was poured, you become the scapegoat. So it could be any of us.
Yes.
So for me, it's been mind-altering.
Yes.
First,
Yes.
I went to Langata Women's Prison the other day.
I saw you
and
donated some books. That was
Yes.
fantastic. I gave you I was clapping for you.
Thank
You
you.
don't know that I was,
Thank you.
but I saw that. I thought I love
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
And that's just the least that we can start to do. The 14th of February, Valentine's Day, thanks to Manu Chandaria.
Do you know? Let me tell you one thing. You're talking about men we need to appreciate.
Yes.
At a younger age, I was thinking about 25 years old, I got to interview Dr. Manu Chandaria.
oh.
I have nothing
But respect.
and complete love and adoration
Let me tell you.
for Dr. Manu Chandaria.
Let me tell you. If there is a leader
Yes.
who stands head and shoulders and shoulders and shoulders and shoulders above everyone, every other leader I know, it's Manu Chandaria.
I told my former boss, Patrick Quarko,
Yes.
I'm going to work for your station until the day I interview Manu Chandaria. And he thought I was joking. And the day I interviewed Dr. Chandaria, I told him, thank you.
had achieved
I
your
was done.
goals.
My goal
Your
at
goal
KISS
for working
100
there?
was done.
Look at that.
He invited me and I sat next to him in all his reverence. Do you know, to this day, it is one of the highlights of my entire life.
Let me tell you, when I think about Manu Chandaria, you can see, and I'm from Nyeri, we don't cry often.
I can
I'm
see the
blinking back tears. Because I'm thinking about the fact that he understands it's not about success. It's about significance. It's about what am I doing? What is he doing? What is every leader doing to change the dial, to give people dignity?
That's the word.
Dignity, irrespective of what they've been through.
Yes.
So last year, groundbreaking together with the Safal group, they decide, you know what? Thanks to Vincent Rapando, who's in the Chandaria Foundation, who's one of our allies. And he said, Manu Chandaria said, okay, we are groundbreaking. And this is our Valentine's gift to this women.
Wow.
And what does that mean?
Wow.
14th of February, the Chandaria Langata Women's Workshop
Yes.
with state-of-the-art baking equipment.
Yes.
With state-of-the-art sewing equipment.
Yes.
So that these women can already begin to skill up.
Yes.
Together with the Clean Start programs that we are doing to help them forgive themselves,
Yes.
to help them make peace with themselves, to help them pick up the lessons from whatever got them into jail,
Yes.
and to heal from that, and then to learn a skill that will keep them off the poverty corridor.
Yes.
Because in Kenya, Africa, we've criminalized poverty.
We have.
It's about time we decriminalize poverty.
Exactly.
And so what happens is that woman bought a cell phone. Case in point, a cell phone which is secondhand.
Yes.
She didn't realize that it had been used for M-Pesa fraud.
No.
Yes. How many of us buy secondhand phones? Many.
Yes.
You don't know the risk.
Exactly.
For her, it's a question of a kabambe. How much is a kabambe? 1,000 shillings or
Yes.
not,
Yes.
or less.
Yes.
Then they track the number.
Yes.
And they track it to her. And then what happens?
She's the one who's jailed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jailed for how many years?
I don't.
4.
4 years.
4 for a kabambe phone? That's a single mother. Goes to work, jailed. Her children are waiting for her. Then, where is mommy? Where is mommy? Mommy hasn't come. Where is mommy?
They didn't know.
How do you know? How do you know? Case in point, a lady is going to sell tomatoes.
Yes.
Can't afford the license. The county council license.
Yes.
You see them swooping up people?
Yes, I do.
She swooped up.
Uh-huh.
She has children. 3, 2, 1.
Okay. Okay.
Girls.
Oh no.
Where is mommy? Where is mommy? Where is our mother? What happens to those girls? So it's a question of us challenging
Yes.
our superiority bias,
Yes.
that we think we are too good to do anything for those who have been caught in situations that
Not
are
of their own making.
Not of their own making, circumstantial crimes of passion. It's true that they are criminals, yes. But let me tell you, at the end of the day, my call to action is for us to remove these masks of superiority.
Pause. Okay. No. You see, I need to only go onto your social when I'm seated. Because when you posted, no. Show me your Google Calendar and your M-Pesa state. Hey? It's like, how are you challenging us like that?
Like that.
On the Instagram. I thought it was a safe space. It is not safe.
It is safe.
Do you know? I was thinking to myself.
And no one
if I was-
commented,
if
guys
I-
are just standing.
We were collapsing. You need to say, you know what? Even the BBC, they have a disclaimer. You know, this content may cause some sort of disruption. It may be triggering. You want us to show you our calendar and our M-Pesa statement, and you will know our true self.
And let me tell you, you don't even need to show me. You just look at it yourself. Now you have the M-Pesa app. Do you sometimes see those figures and you ask yourself, this is not the amount of money. Am I borrowing from somewhere? When it tells you how much you have spent. If you and thank you, Safaricom, for that M-Pesa app. Because it's going to help us talk about, think about, elevate our relationship with money. And our
then
relationship
the way
with
it has
time.
categories now.
Exactly.
So we know.
You can even tell where you're spending your money.
Imagine.
So that quote is because many times we say, we value this, we value that, we value the other. But our commitments do not match that. And let me now talk about International Women's Day.
Please.
For the first time, I am turning down requests to speak. And you know, for us, it would be like the moneymaker week, so to speak, right? But I remember sitting with my team and saying, I want us to accept invitations where International Women's Day is not an event. It is time we stop ticking boxes and saying IWD, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's Day. My dad always tells us and has always told us, I love your mom. Every day is Valentine's. Of course, he was trying to scut out of not getting flowers on that day. But that said, he had a lot of wisdom.
Yes,
and when he says those things, I get it. So this idea that we're going to tick a box.
Yes.
People call us and say, Patricia, we know that you're by far the most prominent voice in the space of leadership in this continent.
You are.
We want you to, thank you. I say, I'm so grateful. We want you to come and speak. I say, when? International Women's Day. This is now calls of this week. I'm like, which year? Next year. Because, it's Tuesday, right?
Exactly.
And they're like, no, Tuesday. I'm like, really? Yeah, we have to do something for the women here just to show our support. I'm like, your support? We don't want support. We want to elevate culture. And then to add insult onto injury, they say, and then we don't have budget. Can you come and do it pro bono? I say, my children don't eat pro bono.
I am taking you home. On our way, we are stopping to kidnap Dr. Manu Chandaria. Ninyi ujue tu. If he goes missing today at 2:15 p.m., ako kwa gari yangu.
And I wonder how we can say women are important,
and yet
we have an event, a breakfast event or whatever kind of event, and then it dies until next year, 6th of March.
Yes.
Oh, we have to look for a speaker. We need our board members, the female board members. Stop it. Let us shift our mindset, because it's a mindset bias of ticking the boxes. And that's why a lot of strategies never get executed.
Yes.
And move from events to a way of life, to culture. Let us launch for you programs and leadership circles that go so much deeper, that involve both the men and the women. So when you look at your constitution, corporate-wise, and you look at how you're engaging as employees with the customers, you can tell that something shifted beyond International Women's Day.
So how do we approach and help them to rise above that culture of thinking of it only as
an event?
To tick a box.
A tick a box.
How do we indoctrinate? How do we internalize?
Yes.
Because for me, let me tell you back to Andrew Kilonzo.
Yes.
And why I owe this gentleman so much. Right?
And I'll be with them at East African Breweries, because they are proving that this is more than just a day event.
It is so much more. It is a culture, and he believes it. And when he talked to you up, I asked him, Andrew, how well do you know this woman? Yeah? Because that guy could take Betty's job. He could be your PA.
Okay.
I had to go and check and what? I'm like, yo, are you on our payroll here on the side from EABL? Because when someone has so much faith, so much confidence, has completely internalized, your teaching, to the point that I felt I'm going through a course at the right school. I felt that, you know what, I'm a better person for having listened to this person talk about you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, anyway, let me just tell you, when we launched the second breakthrough circle at Diageo, East African Breweries, he was their leadership positioner and the sponsor of that particular cohort.
Yes.
Day one, he sat through the entire launch and the session.
Yes.
And he sat there and he told me, Patricia, I need this for the guys.
Yes.
Because we have been thinking that the men know it, but they don't. And I really want to say congratulations, Andrew, because I know you're now proceeding on the 1st of April to be the CEO of UBL.
Wait, Andrew's going to be the CEO of UBL?
Yes.
Andrew, naweza kuongea na wewe jana hivyo.
You have to Google.
Tell me.
Google.
Utakuwa CEO ya UBL.
The point is that when you start to see how everyone can come to the table, your leadership impact just grows.
It does.
And so there I want to honor Andrew and the entire exec team from East African Breweries. We're actually spending the significant part of my International Women's Day, even graduating that cohort that he was part of. And so how do we shift this? You see the quote I sent yesterday around M-Pesa and Google?
Yes.
Then
no, say it, because there are some who may not know. No, please repeat it.
Let me just even read it so that we are not, I'm not paraphrasing something else. There are many things I could say today.
Yes.
And the inspiration from this, for this quote really came from the fact that in my first book, Rise, I talk about the idea of, do your commitments match your values?
Yes.
So show me your Google Calendar, an M-Pesa statement, and I'll tell you your true values. That's on an individual level.
Yes.
For a corporate, show me your P&L and expenditure, and let's see your values. So show me your meeting calendars. What are people meeting about?
Watu wanamitanga wanafanyanga nini? Wanaongeanga nini? In fact, people are always in meetings. I don't see any
and
outcomes.
that meeting culture can be very dangerous to your ability to innovate. So one of the things I encourage our clients to do now is to have stand-up meetings. You're standing up. It's 15 minutes, and in those 15 minutes, you've got to be done, and it's a dead stop, hard stop in 15 minutes. So show me your Google, your collective calendar, showing the kind of meetings you have and the agendas.
Yes.
and then show me your expenditure.
Yes.
And I will tell you your values. So if you value women and you are giving 0.01% of time, of money, then strip it off. Don't say inclusivity, don't say excellence, don't say integrity if you're not spending that time. So I think it's a call to action
Yes.
that leaders
Yes.
call themselves one by one to a personal board meeting. And in fact, that idea of the board meeting, allow me to quote from the book
Please
Pause.
do.
I know our time will never be enough.
No, you'll be back.
But that's what happens when things are good, isn't it?
Yes, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Sean, as Daktari looks for that quote in the book, I would really, really like Radhika Shah to play, because I believe this woman has some very, very important International Women's Day insights. Read the quote, my dear.
Quote 14 from Pose.
Yes.
Call yourself to a board meeting to discern, reflect, and examine your decisions. And then the questions, every quote has 3 questions.
Yes.
When is the last time you called yourself to a board meeting? What did you learn? What do you need to do to make daily reflection a habit?
We're talking about transforming your life. We're talking about breaking through. We're talking about rising to become your next best self. Give me insights, Daktari. I'm just going to hand it over to you. Take over the wheel. Yeah.
You know, when I started thinking about the idea of becoming your next best self, people have said become your best self.
Yes.
But I wanted us to focus on the next.
Yes.
Because if I can be a little bit better today than I
Yes.
was yesterday,
Yes.
then I have made progress. And that's where the culture of shortcuts is never going to work, because we must trust the process and go through it to actually become who we are meant to be.
You are a leadership coach.
Yes,
you have
I
a
am.
PhD in leadership.
Yes, and
We've already
governance.
established that leadership is not a title.
No, stripped of the title, who are you?
Where are we going wrong with our corporate culture?
Okay. I think that the challenge, having worked in corporates and there are many of them are our clients, I find that there's a tension and there's a trade-offs that need to be made where we are thinking about the P&L,
Yes.
the results that are due, the shareholders' commitments and expectations. And unfortunately, when you have to start to think about making a culture more human, more humane, dignifying the working conditions, ensuring that your products are safe for the customers out there, then sometimes the tension between making the quick buck and thinking about sustainability and sustainable leadership, that's where the tension is. So that's the first thing. Yeah. The second thing is I think there's too much noise, that many leaders have no time. In fact, when I coach leaders, I tell them that one of the things I want you to consider doing is I want you to have a thinking morning. They're like, Daktari, I don't understand even what you're saying. I said, yes, a thinking morning. Can you put aside 4 hours to just think, clear up your Google Calendar and just allow yourself, sit under a tree here in Kenya.
It worked
you can
for
sit under a
Newton.
tree and it works so beautifully. Exactly, it did. But we have great weather and we're cooped up in an office where you could actually take that walk and allow your mind to detox from the speed of execution that many corporates have to ensure they do, to asking yourself, when all is said and done, what is my purpose here as a leader? Can it be said that when I came here, if I served as a leader for 3 years, that I left my people better versions? Because that's actually the primary role. Many people don't understand leadership.
Yes.
Leadership is about becoming your next best self, rising others as you lift, and as you raise others, as you lifting others as you rise.
Yes.
And as you rise, lifting others. So it's both ways.
Yes.
But ensuring that that team you found, you have left them in their next best selves.
Yes.
Management of resources and all that is part and parcel of it.
Yes.
But if you remember that as your core responsibility as a leader, changes everything.
But there's a disconnect.
Exactly.
How are you situation kwa ground?
Exactly. Now that's where the challenge is. That if I don't even know the people I'm leading, I don't know the struggles they have. When I'm sending them messages, and I know a lot of CEOs and managers send messages in the middle of the night expecting their team members to respond, are constantly what we call driving over them, reversing, putting them under the bus.
Yeah.
Really just throwing them under the bus.
Really?
And not realizing, figuratively, not realizing that if my colleague makes a mistake, part and parcel of my responsibility as her leader and his leader is to cover, is to actually cover the rainstorm and the hailstones that come onto them and still make them accountable, but also still back them up and say, you know what, we made a mistake. As a matter of fact, many of the mistakes that have been made, errors in products and all, if you treat them properly, they give birth to an even better product.
I agree.
But if it's the kind of stigma that here we don't make mistakes, you will never innovate.
No one acknowledges anything.
You will never innovate.
Ilikuwa sawa tu.
You will never innovate. So one of the things I have found is that leaders rely on their hierarchical power.
Meaning?
The power that comes with the title. But I want to say, strip off that power and challenge yourself to ask yourself, what power would you use if you didn't have the title to influence people to become better versions? Most people have nothing. So the call to action is grow your character power. That is the power that will endure whether you have that job or not.
Whether you have that title or not.
It is the one that will actually make people still call you to help them solve a problem, because they remember who you are, stripped of the title, and what you did to change the atmosphere, to raise the dignity of people, to ensure that people became their next best selves. And by the way, the profits will follow. Third point.
Yes.
If you're a leader and you don't know what problem you're solving, stop it. Stop leading. Stop it. If you're running a business and it's all about the money, stop it. What problem are you solving? Why are you laughing?
Because,
It's not a joke.
the one thing I always tell people is the minute you switch on the mic, what problem are you solving? I've always asked people with anything that you're doing, with where you're going, what problem are you solving? People are I'm like, do you ever get into a taxi, not knowing where you're going? Endesha tu gari, endesha tu, twende tu, like round and round in circles.
Exactly.
You always have a very distinct goal, don't you?
Exactly.
Right? And yet a lot of people, metaphorically,
Don't
or
know
figuratively, get into that taxi.
And they're just going, you just take me wherever you take me. Wherever we land, I shall gisort. Let me tell you, that is precisely why people get married without understanding why they're getting married.
Yes.
People have children without realizing that those children are your utmost responsibility. Doesn't matter what you say, they will only copy what you do. So if you have certain behaviors that you don't want to see in them, can you work on yourself? People get into managerial roles just for the money, the clout, the CV, the profile, there.
They actually don't understand management.
People start businesses because I want to be an entrepreneur, whatever it is, without realizing that we are all called. If you believe in God, we all have a divine assignment. And you know how you can tell your divine assignment? Is figure out the problem that has your name. And it could be a big problem.
Yes.
But at the same time, you can slice it into smaller pieces for the season you are in. So my calling is to help people become their next best selves.
Have you heard of the term ikigai?
Yes, of course. And this whole idea of purpose, because people are always looking for the purpose zone. And ikigai has that, that sweet spot.
Yes.
And I love it because it really ties in with my own experiences that if you don't spend time going through the pain, you will never get to the purpose zone.
Spice.
As we take the next 5-10 minutes, I want you to sum up, not just what International Women's Day means to you, and that's fantastic, but tangible tools.
Right.
Yeah?
Okay.
We can leave our fellow sisters with to help them rise.
Okay. Wonderful. First, get comfortable with the discomfort of silence. Yeah? Get used to listening to what's going on internally. I think the noise from a social media, life perspective is so loud that we don't even have a chance to still ourselves and listen to the inner voice. Tool number 1.
I'll pause you there and make a comment. I get up at 5:30 every morning, but I only work on Saturdays. So people ask me, Double O, unafanyanga nini?
What do you do actually?
I meditate, Yeah, I meditate and reflect until the sun comes up, and then I go exercise.
Look at that.
Yeah.
And you are doing what I was telling the risers, your first sacred hour. 60 minutes, split it the way you want. 20 minutes, and this I also learned from Robin Sharma. 20 minutes to meditate, pray, reflect. 20 minutes to exercise. 20 minutes to read something. Because we are also in a culture that doesn't read.
Oh my goodness. If
That
you're
is
gonna
a
read
whole
one
different
book today,
ballgame.
Pause is one of them. If you've already read Rise, get Pause. If you haven't read Rise, get Rise, then get Pause. Please. Right? Uh-huh.
And so I'm with you on that. I have been meditating, reflecting, praying through meditation for the last maybe 20 years. I had the benefit of someone teaching me how to do so through one of the clubs that I used to go to called Faida, which my daughters now go to.
Amazing.
And it's interesting that, the people you surround yourself with can really make or break you, which brings me to my second tool.
Tell me.
Do a social audit. Girls, ladies, young men and gentlemen.
Yes.
Do a social audit of who is influencing the thoughts and the words that coming out of your mouth. Who is influencing the way you dress, the way you speak, the way you work, your lack of shortcuts mentality, your drive towards excellence, or the opposite?
I like you're okay, or the opposite. Okay.
Yes, because the opposite is also true.
It is. It is.
What is the caliber of the conversations you have? Rafu Books, one of our partners, where you can get the book Pose, Nuria Books.
Yes.
Rafu are very good on social media. And one of the things they said the other day is, you've got to read books. You've got to watch documentaries. You cannot be the kind of person who says, wah, wah, wah. Anytime someone brings a new conversation, Ukraine versus Russia, you can't be saying, wah, wah, wah. We can't be those people. Read. 20 minutes a day, you'll get through a book in a month.
I love it. I
Credit to Rafu for that quote.
Dr. Patricia Murugami has said, she has spoken. No. What will no?
It will not cut it.
No.
You're going nowhere with wah, wah, wah. Rolling your eyes, looking like, oh my goodness, where am I? I've never had that thing in this day and age when the media is in your phone.
All
Come
the time.
on.
Yeah.
You got to choose.
Exactly.
Instead of scrolling through Instagram.
Exactly.
Read something.
Yes.
Watch something that elevates
Elevates.
your human spirit.
So number one,
Get comfortable with the
With silence.
discomfort of silence. Meditate. Safeguard your first hour of the day.
Yes.
And I dare say your last hour of the day.
yes.
Because that also determines how you go to bed with a grateful spirit. One of the things I encourage people to do, 3 things you're grateful for, write them down. Then plan your tomorrow today. So tomorrow, what are my big 3 ticket items that I must do?
Yes.
Plan your clothes, plan everything. So that in the morning, you're not wasting time looking for what to wear. And you have all these clothes, but because you didn't put your mind to thinking about where you're going, what it is you need to do, then you wake up and start your first hour of the day flustered. So you're losing out. You're actually running after the day as it goes along. So get comfortable with the discomfort of silence. Second, do a social audit.
Yes.
Who is influencing you? Whether it is physically people you actually spend time with, or even who you follow. I mean, you have the freedom to unfollow people who no longer lift your spirit.
I've had to unfollow
Absolutely,
people.
and it's okay. Or mute them.
Yeah,
I
I learned that recently because I was not with the social media until recently. But I realized I can mute this person. They won't know about.
Yes.
They're not in my feed. But
let me tell you, each human being has a singular responsibility for determining the quality of their soul. So if every time I read something, I get disgruntled, I get angry, I get disillusioned, then it's time I took that piloting role in my own hands and say, mute this because it's not doing anything for my soul.
I'm actually in groups that the messages come,
Yes.
but I delete them. I just delete them.
Yes.
Delete.
And maybe you're there because there'll be one message that is really important
Yeah,
one day
yeah.
and you can't really exit. So you can manage what comes into your mind, your heart, and your soul.
Number 3.
Number 3, become a lifelong learner.
Excellent.
This idea that the career you have will carry you. It will not carry you. We're doing a lot of work around the future of work, helping leaders become future ready.
Yes.
There is no chance that what you studied for many years ago, even if it's 5 years, will carry you into the work of the
No
future.
chance.
It will not.
Even into 2 years, sometimes like
Exactly.
software,
Look at us in
technology,
2 years.
the world changes. It's turned on its head.
Now look at COVID. How many variants have we had in 2 years?
Oh my goodness.
Let's even say 6.
Yes.
My final comment around changing and growing and becoming your next best self. If COVID could mutate and evolve 6 times over the last 2 years, how many versions of yourself have emerged in the last 2 years? And are you intentional about who you're becoming? You know, as I think about, this conversation we're having today,
Yes.
I think the biggest bias any of us can break through is the bias of quitting on ourselves. Let's stop quitting on ourselves. Let's stop thinking that you're not worthy. Let's stop choosing to have an affinity bias, which means you only hang out with people who are like you, which means that if they're like you, or in a sense, maybe you're the smartest person in the room, change rooms.
I love people who make me feel slightly less than.
Yes.
Not bad.
I know
about
what
myself,
you mean.
But I I have about 5 or 6 of them in my life. Yeah.
That's your personal board of directors, I call it.
Those are my personal board of directors. And these are some very big boys and big girls, right? And the reason I love them is because there is no BS, right?
Yep.
They will just tell me, Olivia, that you are wrong.
What was that?
Yeah, that was nonsense. Or don't do that.
Yes.
Or don't go there.
Yes.
They even stopped me from marrying that man. And I wish him well in his future endeavors. But the one,
Thank God that you listen, because people are told and they don't listen.
they don't listen.
Yeah.
But these are people I entrust my life path with. You know, some are in the clergy. So although I don't classify myself as a Christian, some are in the clergy. Some are CEOs, some are, billionaires in their own right. But these are people who will always tell me the truth. And I think in life, you need people who will always tell truth tellers.
I agree with you. And the funny thing is, truth tellers are all around us, but do you give them the right to meddle and to tell you the truth? Do we actually give them the airtime? And so I love what you're saying, because having a personal board of directors, and they may not necessarily meet around a table,
Never.
but you know that you speak to
Yes.
each one of them,
Yes.
and they feed you, your heart, your mind, your soul in different ways, so that you can keep becoming your next best self, is actually a mark of humility in leadership.
How can people get in touch with Dr. Patricia Murugami now that we are almost
our
out
time
of
is
time?
up, isn't
How
it?
it ended actually a long time ago, but
Okay.
I need you to be
Yeah.
this fountain and to
Yes.
continue being. How can they register for your courses? How can they
Yes.
buy your books? How can they
Yes.
follow you on social media? Tell me everything.
First and foremost, we just launched our new website, DR for Doctor, drpatriciamurugami.com.
Love it.
So there you will get everything. However, I know some of you love Instagram. So I'm there as Patricia.Murugami. I have no pseudonyms. I have nothing to hide. I'm on LinkedIn as Dr. Patricia Murugami. Listen to our podcast. There are 60 episodes. It was born out of the COVID pandemic. And YouTube channels, really, you can find us. If you just type Patricia Murugami, whichever platform you want to engage with us, please do so. The bad news is time flies.
It does.
The good news is you're the pilot of your career and your life. Be intentional about that and become your next best self. Olivia, thank you so much. It's been wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Allow me to quote one last thing, because I don't want the men to feel excluded.
No. Allies are welcome. In fact, 75% of my audience are male.
Wonderful.
I know,
Even
right?
better.
I know.
Wow.
They're listening.
Oh, that's
The
incredible.
data shows.
Let me read a quote from my book, Pose 108, which got me into a lot of trouble last year. But I'm very, very unapologetic about it. The future is not female. I am working towards making the future more human and humane, where each person has the chance to become their next best self.